Great, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for a Creatio webinar. Today we'll be discussing Creatio's ideas about banking of the future, driving efficiency in middle office processes with low-code CRM. I'll be joined by one of my colleagues today as we walk through both a presentation and a live demonstration of this topic. My name is Creatio, and I look forward to hosting this discussion and walking you through a Q&A once the discussion is finalized. We hope to make everything interactive today, so we invite you to post your questions in the Q&A section, in the chat section of this webinar. Following the discussion, we'll be providing all registered participants with a recording of the webinar, and we'll answer any of the unanswered questions offline today. So on our agenda today, I will be introducing our speaker and talking a bit about Creatio. Then we'll talk about the latest observations in the banking sector. We'll talk about transition towards a modern middle office, a low-code CRM for middle offices in banks. Then Nandish will be providing a hands-on demo of the Creatio platform, followed by that interactive Q&A discussion today. So I'd like to hand it off to my colleague Nandish just to briefly introduce himself. I know that Nandish will do an excellent job at discussing our topic today and walking you through a demo. So Nandish, why don't you tell our audience a bit about your background?
Thanks so much, Corey, and hey, good morning, everyone. Nandish Madapati here. I am the Enterprise Solution Manager here at Creatio. Spent about 20 years in the industry, started using CRM way back in the year 2000 on the service automation side, and since then I've used a plethora of CRM products like Salesforce, Oracle, and now Creatio. And I got to be honest with you that Creatio is my most favorite CRM of all the products I've used. Partly it's because I'm probably biased because I work at Creatio, but I'm very excited to be in this meeting talking about low-code technologies in particular, because I think that is the next greatest thing that is happening in the CRM world and taking it to places that has never been before.
Great, thank you so much, Nandish. Looking forward to your demo today. So just while this will be a reminder for many of you, we want to discuss Creatio in a bit more detail before we walk through our capabilities. We have 5 offices around the globe. We have over 650 employees within these 5 offices. We have over 700 partners, which is consistent of consultants and system integrators. And this large channel network and large base of employees enable us to deliver our solution in 110 countries worldwide. We are also highly recognized by key industry analysts, such as analysts from Gartner and Forrester. I look forward to discussing that recognition in a bit more detail as we move forward here. We are recognized in 5 Gartner Magic Quadrants. We are a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for Salesforce Automation and the Gartner Magic Quadrant for CRM Lead Management. Additionally, we are acknowledged in 2 Magic Quadrants that speak to our low-code and process automation capabilities, and a Magic Quadrant that emphasizes our customer engagement center capabilities. We are a strong performer in 7 Forrester Waves. This is a tremendous accomplishment as it's really fantastic to be included in 1 Forrester Wave, so we're very proud of this recognition that we've achieved with Forrester. 5 of these waves speak to our SFA and CRM capabilities, while 2 of these Forrester Waves really speak to our process automation and low-code capabilities. Again, we want to emphasize that we continue to grow this analyst recognition, and we look forward to establishing ourselves as leaders in all of the markets that we compete in. When we talk specifically about Creatio's low-code capabilities, it's important to emphasize that our platform facilitates automation of all tasks that range in complexity and that we support customers across all industries. We're a truly flexible and industry-agnostic solution. Just to quickly emphasize our vision, we believe that we've created a world where everyone can automate these business ideas within minutes, and we do that with our core differentiators. Otherwise known as our Creatio superpowers, which is our BPM engine to change processes faster, our low-code platform to make everyone a developer, and our unified CRM, which aligns sales, service, and marketing. So I'm going to hand off to Nandish now, as he can walk through a bit more detail about our topic today. And just to restate what we were mentioning before, we believe that the world is truly accelerating, and that organizations need flexible tools that facilitate customization and automation of daily tasks. And Nandish is going to talk about this a bit more in detail and how we specifically, provide a solution for banking customers.
Excellent. Hey, thanks, Corey. And I think you're spot on, right? So the Creatio superpowers that we talked about, that's the intersection of CRM, low code and business process. I think it's really truly unique technology in the marketplace. And these days, when I talk to a lot of prospects, their typical questions are, hey, when we are talking about custom objects, how quickly is that possible to deploy it into production? And the answer is, with low-code technology, it's fairly easy. Obviously, it has to go through due diligence of putting it in a test instance, make sure everything works. But then the amount of time it takes for this companies to deploy it is truly fast, and that speaks to the ACELERATE team that you were talking about, Corey. So, but before we get into to the specifics about low-code platform for back offices or middle offices, as we call it, I think it might be a good idea to remind ourselves that we did a webinar or similar webinar for the front-facing office, or the front offices, right? So this is a tag-based, is a follow-up webinar since then. So what we're going to do is to spend some time understanding what does the middle office or the back office stand for, what are some of the emerging trends that is causing those changes, even in the back office, and how is Creatio uniquely positioned as a low-code platform and also as a CRM and a business process engine to help our customers truly succeed as and when landscapes are changing. So first things first, we need to understand what is going on from market observations. So there are two things, there are macro trends that are beyond the control of what the banks are undergoing. And then secondly, it's the emergence of new technologies and also consumer needs. So in addition, when you combine those two things, banks now have to adapt. If they don't adapt, they are not going to survive. So from a macroeconomic trends, we are talking about low interest rate environment. And that is a huge impact on the banks, right? When you think about a low interest rates, number one, obviously people are going to come in and try to refinance their mortgage. I recently did that. I went from a 30-year mortgage to a 15-year mortgage. When I started in 2011, it was like 4.875. Things were very tight back then, and now I get like 2.75, much easier, 2%. Gain in the mortgage interest rate. On the flip side, that interest rate has also hurt savings accounts, right? So savings accounts are giving like 0.1%, tenth of 1%. That's not a lot. So now you have to look at other places. Banks are struggling to get cash flowing into them from the savings account perspective. But people are going and asking for more and refinancing of mortgages, and that's a huge hit for them. So that will accelerate cost reduction on the banks. Now they have to come up with more automation. Now they have to come up about more low-code technologies, lower total cost of ownership of everything that they're looking at in terms of continuing to have profitability. In addition to that, they have to adhere to strict regulatory environments, right? And I'm talking about Bank of America, the likes of Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase. These are truly global banks, but whenever they play in, say, a particular state in the United States or a particular continent, maybe Europe has a different rules than Asia does, than India does, or China does. So now they not only have to be profitable, but they also have to make sure that they meet all the regulatory requirements as well. In addition to that, all of the customers these days are asking for flexibility, omni-channel, not just multi-channel, but omni-channel. So now you have to serve it on different channels on top of that. And more importantly, there is disruption happening through fintech, right? Capital and things, Robinhood and things like that. They are coming in and they are trying to eat away a market share by providing low-cost services. Capital 1360 high-performance savings account is a great example of that. Their interest rates is about 1.25%, even as of right now, which is phenomenal in comparison with what I get with Bank of America at 0.1%. So when you take about all of that, how can banks adapt? Now they're doing it in three different ways. One is obviously to make sure that as and when customer service reps are speaking to the salespeople or speaking to this to their customers, they are trying to position as much upsell, cross-sell as possible. So that's a great way for them to start providing. And we kind of talked about that in the previous webinar, as and when the customer calls in to the contact center, the next best offer, next best action through Creatio's machine learning algorithm can position those things, give a customer profile and position those products and offers to make sure that you get the most out of the increased wallet share per customer. On the secondary level, as and when customers are looking at going into more and more diversification, so It's not only savings account, we're looking at credit cards, we're looking at mortgages, we're looking at insurance, we're looking at private management, private wealth management, we're looking at commercial. There's so many things that there are so many products and so many specializations that you need to have a comprehensive way of controlling all of that through comprehensive product specialists. And finally, from operations perspective, everything should be automated as much as possible. Total cost of ownership should be reduced. So when you think about all of that, low-code technology will enable all of that, and Creatio is in the best position to do so. So how do we look at it from our landscape, right? So what does Creatio look at it from a banking perspective? We can now break it up into two things. At the very top, we have CRM. At the very bottom, we have corporate services. So in simple ways, I would categorize that as CRM being customer experience, at the bottom, corporate services as employee experience. It's really the mixture of both of these offices that combine together to give the best experience, because ultimately, your employees are servicing your customers. If your employees are frustrated, eventually that frustration is going to boil over and it will be made pretty transparent to the customer, to the customers, and that has a direct impact on customer experience. So we can't look at it from a siloed way, and Creatio certainly does not. But then when you break it up into basically the functionalities within the banking, then you can break it up into front office, which is something that we covered about a couple of weeks ago, and now into the middle office or the back office, where we are more focused on underwriting. So when a customer has already come in, they are potentially looking for getting a loan, how efficient can we make that underwriting process? How efficient can we make verification of those customers? How do we manage product catalog? How do we make sure that all of the compliance are adhered to, whether it comes from an anti-money laundering system, whether it is GDPR, if you're working with European customers, data privacy, all of that. So in particular, for today's demonstration, we're going to focus exclusively on application underwriting process. We're going to look at product catalog and how we can launch new product catalogs using the low-code technologies, a little bit of risk management, and then I'll show you some of the key features of how simple it is to create new records in Creatio. So what does a modern middle office look like? So it is broken up into 4 buckets. So number 1 is all about functions. It's all about managing those back offices. So in the past, it was more decentralized. Now it's getting more centralized as such. It's also managing products. It's managing customers. And then obviously from automated side, you want to automate not only the front office, but also the back office, everything from application input to approvals, to verifications, to products, machine learning, bringing it together, everything that you can think about, and also centralized geographical setup. A great example of this is, Goldman Sachs, right? So when you think about Goldman Sachs, they have switched over from what they traditionally used to be as an investment banker until 2008, and then they switched over to a technically a bank now. They're no longer a strictly investment banking. They're also providing some savings accounts and credit cards. Apple Card is a byproduct of that. It's banked with Goldman Sachs. So what is happening there is when you talk to Goldman Sachs employees or any banks for that matter, all of the underwriting process, all of the verification process in many instances are done outside of the United States, right? So typically when we talk about geographical setup, those low-end, verification processes doesn't have to happen in here. It can be in a centralized location somewhere, not necessarily in the United States, maybe in Canada, maybe in Mexico, maybe in Eastern Europe, maybe in Asia, whatever that may be. Now, if you give those necessary tools for those banks to do so, which are high cost, but not necessarily profitable, now you can take and cut down all those unnecessary costs by automating as much task as possible and gain operational efficiency. Once you're able to cut cost, obviously it has an impact on profitability, and continued profitability is good for the banks because then they can go ahead and make more and more of those loans, continue to make more revenue out of that. So they're all kind of connected when you think about it. So this slide basically talks about how the conventional middle office used to be and how is this transitioning over to the modern middle office. And as you can see that it's all about more centralizing decentralizing what it used to be a great concept in the 1980s and maybe even as early as early 90s is kind of going away and getting into more of the centralized organization. The advantage of having the centralized is that once all of the data comes into a centralized location, you have a true visibility of who the customers are. You can start doing high, deep end analytics. You're talking about big data. You're talking about deep end analytics. Once you do that, you're able to then build products that are very suitable to the customers in whatever geographical regions that they may be in. And then provide it to them at the right time so that ultimately it's all about profitability. Moving on to the next slide. So let's talk about how low code in particular is impacting middle offices, right? So this is an important topic for us, especially from today's webinar. Much like we talked about this for the front office, where low code had a great impact, particularly on the sales, service, and marketing part, where it was all about customer segmentation, targeting of customers, personalized offers, lead generation, lead nurturing, take them all the way to the closure and then customer onboarding. Now we're looking onto the back end. But we got to keep in mind that low code doesn't mean that you're going to replace your traditional development at all. That's not the case. So there is a specific area in which low code platforms do work, and this graph basically tells you on where it sits in terms of the quadrant. So if you're looking at total cost of ownership to be decreased, so in other words, as you go on the right hand side, it is actually decreasing. Whereas if you go on the top hand side, you're talking about niche areas. So if it is a very specific application and the idea is to lower the total cost of ownership, then the low code platforms are extremely important. And that is where it's a great fit. So for example, if you are working with a banking platform, maybe you're using banking softwares like from Fiserv or Jack Henry or Symmetra, whatever that may be. And if you're looking at, say, underwriting process, that's a very specific area of many elements that the banking can undergo. But if you want to cut down on total cost of ownership, that is where a great example would be. Anti-money laundering, one specific area. That is where low-code platforms work. You don't want to go ahead and replace the entire solution, but specific areas itself. So I want to make that very clear because that is often a question that I get over and over again during these webinars. So for today's webinar, we're going to focus on three things, and very likely we will focus on one or two things, but then because of the amount of time that we have, we may not be able to finish everything up. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on Customer 360. Customer 360 is extremely important. Other than that, much as it is important from a front office perspective, it is equally important from the back office perspective. As in when you are trying to approve a loan for a particular customer, it is very likely that you need to know how that customer has worked in the past and what kind of products they have purchased, what kind of credit scores do they have. All of those are extremely critical. Once you have that, then you can proceed from when a new loan approval comes in. What are the various steps in underwriting that loan, right? You want to get necessary documents, then it has to go into multiple offices. So you need to have groupisms of queues. This is where the CRM technology, this goes back to what Corey was talking about, which is the intersection of CRM with BPM and low code, where we are going to take advantage of the queues that exist in our CRM platform and use that for low code applications as well. Then we'll spend a little time, very little time on compliance management mainly because of time purposes. But I'll also walk you through the product catalog and how you can build a product catalog in Creatio. And not only that, but we can also have a workflow for product catalog to take a product from initiation all the way to the final stages, because that is extremely important. All right, so what is the total benefits of the low-code application? The key thing is once you combine all of those low-code areas and pick niche areas, you can truly have a great experience for your internal employees, all the way from front office to the back office. We covered the front office a couple of weeks ago. We're going to look into the back office or middle office today. Overall is to start using machine learning algorithms for lending activities, automating as much as possible, and also boost demand generations. Overall, it is a great way for you to take a customer from a prospect into a lead, from a lead into a current customer. And once you have a current customer, you can start expanding that using cross-sell, upsell. If they just bought a savings account, you can actually build a householding object in low code, bring all the various family members that share the same home address together, get a perspective of the total members within that family, and then say that, well, the husband has savings account and a credit card, and the wife only has doesn't have any credit card from us. So why don't we go ahead and start selling more credit cards? And well, now they have a child. Maybe it is time to sell them insurance. Maybe it is time to sell them on a mortgage as well. So that is the key things about what you can do from a low code perspective. With that, I believe my next slide is the demo. Let's switch over to the demo. Or if you can give me permission, please, to share the screen.
Excellent.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so Corey, can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
Awesome, thank you so much. So for people who have been in the webinar prior, I suspect you're already familiar with the interface, but I'm just going to go ahead and give quick preview anyways. So as Corey mentioned, Creatio is a full-fledged CRM product. What that means is you have full access to marketing, so you can build your own marketing campaigns, bulk emails, landing pages to collect leads, generate new leads, and then take that to the sales channel, convert those leads into opportunities, manage your contract life cycle, forecasting for the sales leaders to understand what is going on, and also from a service perspective or a contact center, you can start receiving phone calls or emails, SMS, chats, anything like that, omni-channel way in handling customer service. That is what we covered in the front office. So today we are going to focus on two things, actually three things. One is underwriting. So we're going to walk through an application life cycle of taking a loan and walk through the loan approval process all the way from initial to final stage. Then we're going to take a look into the product catalog and see what kind of product, how the product catalog can exist in the Creatio platform. We'll spend a few minutes on the risk management. We'll take a look at how we can build a risk catalog, various kinds of risk categories that you can create. And if time is allowed, I might just create a simple record, maybe for assessment or something like that, to show you how simple it is to create a new object in Creatio. All right, so with that, let's jump into the underwriting process. So basically, the idea here is that customers can come up to you for many different reasons, right? So using low-code technologies, we can configure the look and feel of the page any which way you want it. And you can also draw deep analytics based on what kind of loans are going on, and also from a Kanban perspective, what are the different stages in which all of the applications are sitting in, what is sitting in currently in the product stage, who is currently in the filling stage, where is in the validation stage. Each of them is a different task, right? So as and when you want to move things over, say from product to, you can simply actually drag and drop that in here, and that's how simple it is to move it from one stage to the next stage. So that's how simple it is. So now let's go back and talk about what kind of applications that you can create. There are two kinds of applications that you can do. One is financing for new investments, or another is loan service. So let's go ahead and select loan services right now. And a new dialog box opens up. Now, everything that I'm showing you is built in low-code technology. As you can see from an employee experience perspective, we are kind of guiding people step by step on what to do next, right? So this is loan services, then it's now filtering it by what kind of loans do you want to have, maybe it's auto loans or business loans, mortgages, whatever that may be. And let's go ahead and select mortgages. So right now, as I selected that through low-code technology, it's went ahead and populated all of the relevant details, like who am I, what is the registered date, what branch office this is, and what is the source of all of that. But also, more importantly, now it's giving you the business process workflow, right? So from a business process workflow, it is telling you where does this currently stay? Where does it currently sit in terms of the overall process of the application from a product selection all the way to the contracting stage? Now, this is extremely critical because I had a personal experience where as I was trying to refinance my loan, and I was talking to my mortgage broker, who happens to be from a local bank here in Massachusetts, and I was asking where are we standing, and he did not know that. He had no clue where it was going, and then he physically had to pick up the phone and call the underwriter, and the underwriter, got back to him a day or two later where they were. But what we can do through low code and through a single CRM is to expose this underwriting, which is typically done on the back end, expose it to the front end, so they don't have to see the full details, but technically they can say, where does this process sit in underwriting process without having to talk to somebody from the department? And I think that is pretty powerful. Anyways, so let's go ahead and select the loan product right now. Let's go ahead and say that we'll select the loan product, and as you do that, it's now populating different fields, and let's go ahead and start filling in the applications as well. Now, right now, it started filling up an application. It has gone and selected a contact for me. If I want to select a different contact, I can do that. I can start populating different names. How do you want to recall the first person? As you can see, what has transpired, what you did not see is that I'm automatically transitioned from what was a applications to an application form. A seamless transition that has happened, but you did not realize that until I pointed that to you, right? And now basically we're saying that, hey, there are certain things that are absolutely necessary for us to proceed further, and we make them completely mandatory. So again, workflow processes, then in addition to that, we can now start working and saying that how many dependents does this individual have, how many children does he have, how many children under the age of 14, basically a step-by-step process of saying, let's get more and more information on what is going on. Again, the reason this is so powerful is because the advantage of using low code is that these things can be built by business owners. So you don't need to have any experience in understanding the programming language, whether that be C#, .NET technology, or whatever it is. Business owners will come together in Creatio, figure out how they want this process to be laid out, and using basic low-code platform, they will be able to build this application form as and when needed. So the advantage here is that as and when people understand how they're, how they want to function within their department, things tend to go a little bit better, right? So right now I'm saying that from a finances perspective, he has two sources of income. Maybe he makes $5,000 a month from his employment. He has an additional rent coming in, his expenses. These are all typical things, right? So his expenses are about $1,000, and then he also has an additional expense for utility for about $1,000. Things like that. So basically, step-by-step documentation of what is going on. Then we go into the documents. Then we say that from underwriting purposes, there are a couple of documents that is needed. Maybe in a driver's license for identity purposes. We can say that this group is for identification. Type is, by protocol or decree or whatever that may be. And you can start attaching those documents as well. So everything that you do in here goes step by step. Right now, it'll say, okay, everything is done. Do you want to go ahead and start sending it for validation, right? So now validation is going on. So I can say that, okay, let's go ahead and start submitting it for loan insurance. So basically, we have selected the product. Then we started filling up the application. Now it is going into validations of the customer. So this is where the customers, it goes to a different department, and the department might say, okay, I'm going to confirm it. These are all the underwriting criteria. So I look at it and I say, yes, this everything matches up. I can assure you of that. So all of this is being documented from a checklist perspective. You can see that there's already an attachment in here. Hit complete, and then you start proceeding into the contract management perspective and start scheduling a presentation of what are the offers, what kind of offers that you can potentially do to the client. So this is a great way for things to go in a sequential way of understanding step by step of what are the steps that are absolutely necessary in terms of positioning this to the customer. And now, of course, this goes back to the salespeople will take back and say that, hey, this is basically what we're going to offer you. These are the interest rates. Are you good with that? If you're not happy with that, either we can cancel it or we can go back to the drawing board and see what else can we do in terms of giving you a better rate. So that is a quick example of how an application lifecycle will begin by starting a loan process and walking you through step by step on how to get there. So in interest of time, I'm going to jump into the next section, and that is product catalog. And if you recall from the middle office or a back office perspective, we were talking about not only the underwriting process, but also the products, right? So for the product, basically, we're going to take advantage of the CRM technology, right? CRM has a typically in Creatio CRM, we are working with not only banks, but we're also working with manufacturing companies, retail stores, and many other industry verticals as well. And everybody needs some sort of a product catalog. Not all of them, and it is a lot. Typically, people tend to use their ERP system for product catalog, but we can have a fairly decent catalog on our own where you can segment it by different types, right? So in this case, bank cards and all of the credit cards are segmented here, debit cards are done here, insurance, whether that be auto or personal, and within them you can have different kinds of insurance as well. So what we're going to do is talk about how if you have to create a new product, and we talked about centralized product previously. When a new product is introduced, it doesn't happen in vacuum. There is a lot of validation of those things that needs to happen between from introducing, making sure that the team will approve of that. So what you can do is we can start in, let's say, a new bank card or a new credit card in here, right? So I can call that as a, say, I don't know, like ABC Bank, 0% interest, something like that, right? And who do you want to send this to? Do you want it to make it into a individual, like a individual, or does it needs to be a business credit card? So you can kind of segment it by contact or by legal entity. So let's go ahead and select contact over here, right? And now what I can do is I can set up section cases in here. This is the power of extending the low-code technology as well, right? So what we're doing right now is we are now saying that when a new product is introduced, I want to have a workflow, and that workflow is dependent on different status. So right now, if you look at the status, there are in development, new, current, and so on and so forth. And we want to segment it by available for. So available for simply means that are you making it available for the individual or for the legal entity like a business? So I can have two different workflows because the workflow for businesses could be different than individuals. So I can say that this should be available for, say, a contact. And now I can say this is for individuals. I want to have a couple of stages. The first stage is going to be a new stage. The second stage is going to be in development. Then it is going to become current. And maybe after a while, we will outdate it or we will retire that product, right? And so these two are mutually exclusive. So I'm going to group them together because it can either be current or it can be outdated. I'm going to turn that into red in color. And if it is in development, I'm going to make it into a different color. And if it is new, I'm going to make it into a different color as well. So what I'm trying to show you here is really the low-code way of creating workflows very easily. In this workflow is only for contact, not for businesses. And within each of these stages, using low-code technologies, I can start assigning tasks. I can start requesting approvals. I can send it as an email notification when a certain task is completed, indicating the status of where those product life cycle actually begins. So for example, I can say build a team, right? So this is a workflow that we can create. So I can say build a team. And then over on the, if I simply left click through low code technology, I get a simple dialog box to say what should happen. Like this task should be shown in the calendar. This should be done within 1 day. The overall process is going to take about maybe 2 hours to do so, whatever that may be. And after this, maybe I will then say, collect materials or marketing materials, something like that. So you get the idea. As I'm building this, I am start building a workflow on how it should follow step by step. So if I click save and click save again, I'm doing this in the interest of time. I'm kind of accelerating things in here, but you can get as creative or as much more as complex as it can possibly get. So let me go ahead and reload that page. And when I do that, now you will see that a dynamic case management or a workflow shows up in here. So let me go ahead and select this to be a contact. As soon as I do that, you can see that the workflow shows up. If I select legal entity, that disappears because I don't have a workflow. This workflow is only for the contact, not for the legal entity. So if I select contact again, you'll see that it shows up. And if we click save, and now you can see that build a team workflow shows up, which is basically the task. That's how simple it is to start creating a product life cycle and saying that, hey, if I have to start a new product, these are the various stages. This is a great way for banks to create a comprehensive, disciplined workflow, and all of the checks are done by the necessary teams through automation, like the way I just did. I showed you, and although I'm just showing you the task, you can do the same thing from requesting approvals, sending an email notification, validation, things like that. You can do a lot of things in terms of product approval. So that was a very quick preview of how you can take any object and create workflows which did not exist in the past. So right now, if I go in here, there'll be workflows for everything, right? So this is previously which did not exist. And again, you can always use Kanban view to see what stages, which products are in different stages. You can do deep analytics based on that. All of those cool things that CRM provides you, you can do that as well. And finally, what I'm going to do is give you a quick preview of risk management. Again, risk can come in different ways. Here are 3 different incidents that we programmed. So there's a customer complaint, that can be a fraud detection, it could be potential risk about somebody defaulting on loans, for example. And you can use machine learning to do so. Again, this is a workflow that has been created, and if you want to create a workflow, much like I did previously, you can start setting up section cases as well. And then same thing about preventive actions, audit cases, everything. So one of the questions that I want to address right now is how do I create one of these sections, any sections for that matter. So I'm going to take about 2 minutes and show you how to do that because it's very important. So for that, you go to Section Wizard in the system settings. Section Wizard will basically give you the ability to create any sections that you want to create in Creatio. And again, low-code technology, like I can't even describe it to you. So in here, let's say I'm going to create a section called assessment, right? So all you do is you say, what is the title that should be present? So right now, assessment doesn't exist in here. I'm going to create an entity in the database, and I want to docket it in the risk management workplace. So all I do is click save. And now what is happening is, as I'm talking to you, this is building a schema alive, creating a new object. It just realized that a new object called assessment has been created, and it needs to be docked in the workplace called risk management. So it's now building a schema. It's updating the database structure. By the way, this application is sitting in an AWS server in Virginia. So right now, as I'm speaking to you on live, I'm actually building a new custom object on the fly, and that's typically a very risky proposition always, but I've done this so many times in Creatio that I'm always confident that it works 100% of the time. So I'm pretty confident that this will be built in the next 10, 15 seconds or so. And look at the speed in which it's updating all of that, right? It's creating a new object, it's updating the database, it's building a new schema, it's registering a new schema, it's going to clear out the cache, and within a couple of few more seconds, it should be done. So now say that it's already done. If I go back and look at risk management, assessment does not show up in here. If I simply reload that page, now you will see that a new object called assessment was created, just like I told you. And it not only did that, if I click in here and click new, I have the ability to, it gives me the ability to create a name, attachment notes, audit, and feed. Now you can obviously get more creative, open up the page designer, and extend the low-code technology to create any workflow for any workflow for any custom object. So you get new data points, like if you want to create a Boolean operation or a date or a lookup or whatever that may be. If you want to add a description, you can simply come in here, drop that in here. It'll tell you what should that be. It'll be, say, description. Again, low code technology, right? And I'm just doing that in here. Click save and click action in here, and then click save one more time. And this time it's going to be a little faster than the previous time because that object already exists. It only has to rebuild the new object schema on where that position is laid out. It's now creating a new entity again. And as you notice that I only use the drag and drop in terms of page designer, did not use any programming language at any point of time. The idea here is that we don't want our customers to be learning new programming language, but simply know how that system should work. Description should now shortly show up under the name. And if I click new, you'll now see a description show up. That's how simple it is to build any object in here. So in summary, what I've done with the demo is kind of give you a quick preview from the underwriting process of taking an application, creating a one from start to finish. In the interim, we quickly went to application forms and came right back to the application. We looked at the product catalog, and then I showed you how to add a simple workflow for any of this product catalog. Then I kind of walked you through, show you how you can create a custom object like assessment and build a web form, something like this, very, very quickly. And with that, I'm going to end the demo and take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nicholas. That was a really, really great demo and great discussion prior about our topic today. So let's walk through some of the Q&A and some of the questions that our audience has asked us. First question is, how can you switch easily from a traditional middle office to a modern middle office?
It is, again, just like with any other customers, we always say crawl, walk and then run, right? So obviously you don't want to get very ambitious. Keep in mind that from any perspective, you should always test it out, right? You don't want to happen, we talked about in the transition slide, how we want to transition over step by step. So I would only take one step at a time, baby step. Maybe you want to start automating just the product catalog, right? Maybe start with that, just like the way I showed you. Or maybe take one area of underwriting and start automating that. So I would not get very ambitious. Test it out, look at the efficiency gains, and then start expanding there. But obviously you need to have a plan before you do so. But I would say plan it out, maybe one or two things, baby steps, understand what is going on, and then when you feel comfortable, you can take it to the next, as you start expanding it.
Excellent. Let's move to our next question. Is it possible to transform front-to-end processes with low-code CRM without having strong technical background? I know we mentioned this before, but
yeah.
Short answer, yes, Nandish.
The answer is yes, obviously. So in the little limited time that we had, I showed you how you can create a custom object. At no point of time did I have to write any programming language, whatever, right? At the same time, when it came from a new product catalog, we were able to add dynamic case management workflows for product approval, product initiation, product rollout. So you can do that for anything. So the short answer is absolutely yes. You don't need to know any programming language, and that's the power of low code. And only Creatio provides you that intersection of CRM, where you can take advantage of CRM as and when needed, like for queues, and not necessarily for anything else. So low code will take care of the rest of them.
Perfect. Thank you, Nandish. Is it relevant for retail banks to consider a low-code CRM if users don't have a technical background? I think you've also just answered this question. Yes.
Yeah. When we were talking to a bank in Midwest, somewhere in the Missouri area, a couple of months ago, and they were looking at low-code technology because when you think about low-code technology, customer onboarding is a huge issue, right? And that is a very powerful application. address change is another issue, right? So when a customer calls in from a CRM perspective and say that, hey, listen, I have updated my address. I moved apartments or moved houses, whatever that may be. It has to update in many places, not just the savings account, checking account. Maybe they have a mortgage, maybe they have a credit card, maybe they have an insurance product. It impacts many departments. And low-code technology through business process could be that glue that connects different systems through various API calls to enable all of those things. And Creatio was a great fit in that situation.
Excellent. And is it possible to compete with agile fintech startups when switching to a new automated mobile middle office process?
It is. That question maybe requires a little bit more description. So if your fintech has it's a newer technology, right? So the bigger banks are struggling with that, but they're also competing with the online only. That's something that I'm noticing. Capital One 360 has done a good job about it. I've recently noticed that Citibank has rolled out a similar online only banking with higher interest rates. So can that be done? Absolutely. I think low-code technology will enable the total cost of ownership, at least from the operating cost. So the short answer is yes, but it takes a lot more than just technology. It's the will and the management and the speed at which they move is probably, there's a lot more to that than just technologies, in my opinion.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nandish. Now, we did touch on part of this question. What are the benefits of low-code CRM for banks offering tailored solutions to their clients? And does it take into account the specifics of various industry trends? I believe we touched on the first part of this question, so maybe we can talk about, does it take into account the specifics of various industry trends?
It does. So from an industry trends, again, so it goes back to what do you want to do? So low code will only work best when you have a very niche area that you want to focus on, right? So you're not building a comprehensive credit risk management solution within low code, because there's going to be a lot more involved in that. But if it is like a underwriting process where you're working with different teams together, anticipating some sort of a signal from an external source, then low code works best, in my opinion. But as I showed you towards the end of the demo, you can practically build any record. I created an assessment, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be an anti-money laundering object. Then you can start filling it up with web forms. Then you can have workflows created that. So you can create a configured application to a specific trend that is going on, whether that comes from an auditing purposes, whether it comes from fraud purposes, whether it comes from a risk purposes, and you can build applications relevant for it. So the short answer is absolutely you can do that, but again, the onus is on the team itself to understand what those trends are and what they want to build it, and then depending upon the use case, we can definitely recommend low code or some other technology.
Excellent. And then one of the last questions is, can you provide examples of successful implementation and utilization of low-code CRM in banking middle offices?
Oh, there's so many of them. Top of my head, OTP Bank in Europe comes to my mind. Oman Arab Bank in Middle East comes to my mind. And Creditunion in Colorado comes to my mind. Those are all great examples of low-code platform, but keep in mind, it doesn't have to be a back office. It can be as simple as lead generation, right? Personalizing, customer 360, understanding when a customer calls in about a particular things, how can low-code leverage through machine learning the next best offers, next best actions. When a customer calls about a specific area or an address change, what kind of workflow should trigger in the back end. So there has been so many instances, it's quite extensive that we can talk about, but the short answer is whether you're looking at it from a CRM perspective of marketing, sales, or service, or you're looking at it from a niche area of looking at it from a fraud detection or a fraud underwriting process, whatever that may be. There's been numerous instances and many examples of where we have used successfully and OTP and Oman Arab Bank is a three great examples of that. And there are many, many more, like Grameen Bank in Bangladesh. There's also Siddhartha Bank in Nepal.
Thank you so much, Nandish. Thank you for answering these questions. While we wrap up today, I also want to take this opportunity to share that Creatio has introduced a new online course called Low Code Application Development on Creatio platform on Udemy. And the course is aimed to help individuals master business software development without coding skills. The students are provided with 8 modules to learn how to develop applications on Creatio's low-code platform. And the duration of the course is just 8.5 hours. And within that 8.5 hours, viewers attain a breadth of knowledge from the modules in just that time. So we welcome you to take a deeper look at this on our website, hopefully enroll and take advantage of these great lectures and learn how to leverage Creatio's offering, maybe even specifically for some of the use cases and the specific topic that Nandish was discussing in detail today. And just a reminder again that this is, this recorded webinar will be provided following the discussion today to all registered participants. But this webinar is also part of a larger initiative and digital events series offered by Creatio. We offer events in 7 different formats. We look forward to educating you and providing you with a breadth of knowledge through our webinars. And that is why we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see previous events and live events, and encourage you to check out some of the topics that we've discussed in the past if they're relevant to your business. So thank you so much again, Nandish, for leading the discussion and the demo today. And thank you to our audience for participating.